G'day, Bomber fans. Well, things go from bad to not worse, but I guess, just as bad. Things haven't gotten better, is what we should be saying. The Bombers were smashed by Fremantle or Walyalup at the MCG. Luckily, by the way, that MCG crowd was just about its lowest for the Bombers in about 30 years, so it's not like too many actually witnessed this result live in person. But yeah, 1 win from 10 games this year. We haven't won in Melbourne in 12 months, and it's just the same problems rising to the surface as has been for all of 2026 so far. The scoreline may look semi-respectable, but the performance was far from it. So let's talk about this game. Leave your votes in the comments down below. 3, 2, 1, role player attached. Quarter by quarter recap. The first did not start well. It was genuinely, it was horrible. The first 3 minutes in this game, the Dockers were playing with their own footy out there. It felt like we couldn't touch the thing. They were just kicking goal after goal. It took about 5 minutes for me to know this game was done. And I think that's probably a common theme with us fans watching this game, whether you were at the MCG, whether you were watching on TV. This game was done in the first 5 minutes. You could just tell that there was a team out there who was trying to win, a very good team out there trying to win, and really just a down on their dumps Essendon who weren't even trying. It was shocking. We did get a steadying goal in that first quarter from Sullivan Roby, and for a solid 5 or so minutes, we had the game on neutral terms, trying to even it out a little bit. But, even while we weren't being dominated on the footy itself, we were being ripped apart inside 50 on the scoreboard. And as the quarter began to die out, the rain started to come, which helped. But it was still 5-1 at quarter time. Really horrible start. The second quarter did start to play out a bit more on neutral terms. You could felt that there was a little bit of a shift in the way that the game was actually being played. But unfortunately, even with that shift and the Bombers getting more opportunities, we were failing to convert. We kicked 5 behinds for the quarter. Fremantle kicked 5 goals, and 4 of those 5 goals came from Patrick Voss, a forward that we delisted without giving a game to a few years ago. He kicked 4 goals on the MCG, was taunting fans all day. It was, that quarter was better in terms of the way it was being played out, but more frustrating because, while it was being played out in a more positive way for the Bombers, we were still being ripped apart, and at halftime, we were down by 52 points, and we'd lost the game by that stage. The third, unfortunately, the embarrassment continued for a little bit there. There was a period where it had been an hour since we had kicked our last goal in the game. Archer May would rectify that, kicking a set shot. And Nate Caddy kicked a ripper from outside 50 just a few minutes later. We're kicking goals for fun in that second quarter and by third quarter. And by goals for fun, I mean 2 goals, by the way. We did still lose the quarter and trailed by 54 points at the final break. And to round out the game in the fourth quarter, we reduced the margin. We won the term. Happy days. False positivity, by the way. It was I'll touch on that as we get into the video a little bit. False positivity and what the margin reduction means, or that second half turnaround. But May, Caddy, Roby, they all doubled their tallies. Darcy Parish got a major. Even Will Setterfield beat the buzzer late in the game to reduce the margin a tad more. But in the end, we won the quarter, won the second half, by the way, as well, but lost the game convincingly by 43 points. So yeah, what went wrong? Well, yeah, if we're looking at where this game went wrong, I mean, we just got to talk about that first quarter. I think that was everything. People will say that the Bombers rallied in the second half. I honestly think the game evened out a little bit more in that second quarter. But who cares? Who cares if that's when the game is evening out? Who cares if the game even needs to even out? We're playing good footy when it doesn't matter. That is what is happening with Essendon right now. And this is something that I really am excited to talk to you guys about and hear what you have to think about this, because we're just so out of games early into the piece. Our opposition, it feels like they stopped trying halfway through games. Half of our games this year, by the way, we have been down by over 30 points at halftime. Games are lost so early for Essendon. It's becoming more than a trend. We start horribly. Our opponents win the game at halftime, or in this case, quarter time. And then the second half, we start to look a more competent team. That is false positivity. That is false dawn material. That first quarter in this game, specifically the first 5 minutes, by the way, that is inexcusable, horrific footy. That is the sign of a weak, flat track bully team who cannot handle pressure and thrive as soon as there is none. That is why we play well when it doesn't matter. And this game is the perfect example. It's the perfect way to showcase just how weak this team is sometimes. Because, sure, we lose by 7 goals, we reduce the margin, we have a better second half, but we had 1 goal at halftime. Like, how can a team concede 3 goals in the first 5 minutes, be down 13 inside 50s in the first quarter, almost 50 disposals, 14 contested possessions in the first quarter? Like, I could go on, but it's embarrassing. And that is what has lost us the game and lost us so many other games this year. It is a tired trend. We can be positive about a second half turnaround all we want. We can look at ways to be positive about performances and about games, but it's just so annoying watching games of footy now, trying to be positive. And I guess the main themes around positivity are always the way that we reduce margins when it doesn't matter in games. Like, I was positive heading into this game. By the way, you guys remember my preview. I was positive heading into this game, and I feel like an absolute clown for being as positive and trusting as I was. Like, we just, it's so often that we lose appetite to watch games of football by quarter time. I cannot, commend the fans that braved out the weather in this game at the MCG enough for staying the whole game, because I'm not someone who leaves games early, but I might have. It was, that first quarter was disgusting. And how can any team be playing first quarter football like that? It wasn't even close to our worst first quarter of the year, by the way, and it was still just so putrid to watch. Like, slow starts are not just a trend. It is the sign of a team that is weak when they need to be strong. We are never strong when we need to be strong. We are always strong when, I guess, people expect us to be weak, or when games are already won by the opposition. And then when we turn it around, there's positivity. People say, look at the Bombers, look at how they've turned this game around and reduced the margin. I don't care about that. Sure, it's happened once or twice this year against the Bulldogs, where I actually felt like there was momentum and morale after that performance, and that we took that into Melbourne and Gold Coast the week after. I don't feel any of that here. I feel like the Fremantle Dockers took their foot off the gas and allowed us to be a better team than what we are. And that has been the case so often this year. It is inexcusable to be starting games the way we do, and it happens far too often. All right, team selection. We got to talk about this. I don't know what that was. Like, even after the GWS game, but actually before the GWS game, we went into it saying this is a very tall team to be playing a game of football. That GWS game, which we lost maybe because we were too tall, that was a dry game. So I'm going to ask the question, how did we get taller for this game? Like, we actually got taller for this game against Fremantle in the wet. We had 5 players over 2 meters tall. They had no impact, by the way. Not only were we slower than the Dockers on ground level because we were so tall, that was always going to happen. We also lost the aerial contest, so there was no reason to be as tall as we were. We lost contested marks. Fremantle had more ascendancy in the air than the Bombers, despite being the taller team. It baffles me why we were so tall heading into this game, knowing it was going to be wet. Everyone knew this game was going to be wet. And then you look at some of the other changes. Jade Gresham being left out again makes no sense. Like, why are we playing Jaden Ewan as our only small forward? The guy is he's a defender playing his 3rd game in the forward line alongside midfielders being forced to play there out of position. Then you've got Will Setterfield who joins the team. You think, okay, he'll play in the midfield, maybe a negating role. No, he plays exclusively on the wing. One of our least mobile players playing on the wing, a position that requires mobility. I don't understand that at all. I feel like sometimes us couch coaches, maybe we act as if we know more than the coaches by saying this stuff often in hindsight, and I've been guilty of that. I know plenty of you guys have also been guilty of that. We do it a lot, but anyone can look at our team sheet and know it was wrong. We were saying this before the game was played. A non-footy fan could tell you that playing tall players in wet weather football is a recipe for disaster, and shock horror it was in this case. And also, just taking away team selection and individuals, just the way this game played out, like, I don't even think we were out-coached. It didn't feel like we really were coached. Sure, Scott gave them a spray at quarter time. Good on you, but why is that necessary every week? Why does Scott need to rely on the spray to get the boys up and about? Why not pull out the spray before the game starts? Maybe that's the strap for next week. Pull out the spray before the first quarter so they can actually start with a bit of spunk in them. It feels like we're always on the back foot, always backpedaling in games. I've got serious questions over the way this team is being coached right now. Like, you guys would know me. I'm very much a pro well, not pro. I guess I've never really been a Brad Scott out kind of guy. I think stability is important in a football club, especially a rebuilding football club. But performances like this, and I say performances because this isn't a one-off. This has happened far too many times this year. It is hard to argue that stability is important to a football club if this is what it looks like. If this is what we are going to be looking like every week, is this what we want, in our coach? Is this what we want our team to be looking like every week? I don't think it is. I think it's incredible that senior players are so heavily underperforming. It's not like we've got a bad team. Yes, we've got a young team, but we've got all Australians. We've got these, Kyle Langford's kicked 50 goals in 2+ years. Why is he playing such bad footy? Is that on Kyle Langford? Is Darcy Parish, an all-Australian midfielder, playing bad footy, for his own doing? Is Ben Mackay being dropped for the first time in his career because he's playing bad footy? Or is there a common denominator with these underperforming senior players? And I think it's silly to just assume that all the senior players right now are playing bad footy at the same time. There is something more sinister and eerie lingering at the club, and I think that has to be investigated much more than these senior players who are being dropped every week. If Mackay is dropped, if Langford is eventually dropped, which I assume he probably will be, if they're being held accountable for their bad performances, why aren't the coaching staff also being held accountable for their bad performances? Because I think if senior players that have proven they can play good footy, are playing bad footy right now, that is telling me more about the way they're being coached. I guess that's a good segue to talk about the senior players because, let's do it. Mason Redman, I thought he was all right last week in his first game back from injury. It honestly looked like this game was his return game. He looked so off it, both offensively and defensively. He was nowhere on Pat Voss. He was nowhere I don't even know if he touched the footy in this game. It was a shocking performance. It looked like someone returning from injury, which is funny because last week returning from injury, I thought he was pretty good. Kyle Langford, I think there is every chance this guy's dropped to the VFL soon. Like, he's just not playing footy as a leader should be. I thought he had some nice, moments late in the game, some contest moments, but where was he when it mattered? Absolutely nowhere. Peter Wright's had a good season, didn't do much in this game. Caldwell, coming back from injury, but he was poor as well, so we cut him a little bit of slack for his first game back. I did think there were some good performances from the senior boys. I thought McGrath was one of our best players, and I thought Merritt and Parrish were both good as well, but it's just a theme of there's a bunch of these senior players playing well, showing signs, but also just a bunch not. And it's such a flaky group of leaders. Sure, McGrath and Parrish were good in this game, but that's not the norm. They're not good every week. It isn't the norm with in fact, it's not the norm of any of them aside from Zach Merritt, who is our most consistent senior player, and he doesn't want to be at the club. And there's a reason why he doesn't want to be at the club. Like, I'd honestly rather some of these guys stink it up every week so we know what to expect, because what we get instead is, these poor performances where we're frustrated. We get hope from an improved performance, and maybe we think, okay, maybe Parrish is back to his all-Australian best. Maybe Peter Wright, maybe he is the ruck we really need. And then they followed up with games where they are absolutely nowhere. It is such a flaky and turbulent group of leaders. You got to say, it's one of the poorest leadership groups in the competition, and that's not a hot take. That isn't me being hyperbolic in any way. That is genuinely, it's not just me saying that. That is, it might be fact. In terms of the way that the game played out, and I guess analysing it a little bit, I don't think the stats look too bad, but I think common themes with, the Bombers football this year is that over-reliance on the contest and what it means when we're not, winning or evening out the contest a little bit, because we are such a poor team if we're not in the game when it comes to the contest or the midfield. I think the midfield particularly is crucial to our success in game, which is really worrying because we are so average in that engine room this year. And then you look at our ball movement, which is it's better than it has been at times this year, but it's still, in this game, it was stagnant and slow. Of course, wet weather plays a part in that, but in every game lately, it feels like our opponents are just better moving the footy than us. Like, even last week when we had those signs of moving the footy at a good pace, we were still being absolutely carved apart by GWS on transition. Like, that's why there's so many reasons why I'm losing faith in the coaching department and the way that we're being coached, because our game is just not at a level where we are not competitive, but I guess just compete in key metrics. Like, that's what's frustrating, because I'm not even seeing signs of improvement week to week now. Like, even last week where we played better footy, we are still getting carved up on transition, which has been our kryptonite for so long as a footy club. There was a 3-game block with that Melbourne win where we were playing a more sustainable brand of footy, but the question is, where has that gone? Why is that just completely nowhere? Why can we not go back to where we were against Melbourne, against Gold Coast, against the Bulldogs in that second half. It's impressive, and it's, I guess, heartening to know that we can play that level of football, but most of the season has been borderline unwatchable footy, and this game was another example of that. If this game isn't wet, we probably lose by 80 points. Rain saved us late in that first quarter, I reckon, and even, by the way, in this game, when the game isn't unwatchable, when we're not being completely smashed, it's because our opponents have taken their foot off the gas and aren't trying as hard as they would be, or if they need to be. This was an easy game for Fremantle to win. They could have gone out and put us to the sword, but they know they've got tougher games coming up. It was an easy win for them. Honestly, we should be thanking the footy gods for helping our percentage, but also in saying that, there's a bit of a frustrating element, and I don't know if you guys agree with me here, but there's a frustrating element to this game where we weren't competitive enough and we didn't make the game close enough to, I guess, trust Brad Scott going forward in the next few weeks as coach, but we weren't smashed enough by the Dockers to really worry about the club to an extent where decisions have to be made. It feels like this was a limbo game where we're not getting smashed, we're not in the game or winning it, we're in limbo in this game, and it feels like there's more that we need to know about this football club before big decisions are made. I'd honestly rather Fremantle put us to the sword and win by 100 points so we can make those fast decisions now, because right now we're just in this period where we don't really know where we are, we're feeling things out, and it's not good. Now, what I will say, obviously this has been a very negative review, but there were some positives in this game. Clearly, there is talent on this list. Like, spoiler alert for my votes, but Sullivan Roby, I thought was our best player. He's an 18-year-old, and he was our best player in this game. He was awesome out there, and so many young players like Caddy, May, and Roby combined for 6 of our 8 goals as a team. Archie Roberts, again, our leading disposal getter, having an awesome season. Jacob Farrow, yet again, showing signs, and I thought this was a really improved performance, especially in the wet, which isn't exactly Farrow's MO. Like, clearly it's a talented list, and some will beg the question, how do we get the most out of the talent on this list if we don't have these senior players around them leading them? But I think performances like this from some of those young players, like Sullivan Roby playing this well in a game so early in his career, is as heartwarming as you can get in a big loss. And that's the case that it's been a lot this year, where the young players are kind of guiding the senior players through the season. And I think that vibe is evident, in games like this, at training as well, and what you hear from players. It does feel like we've got a core group of young players that want to lead the club forward. Sullivan Roby, of course, was a big Essendon fan growing up. Nate Caddy does want to lead the club. Archie Roberts wants to lead the club. These guys want to be here leading the club going forward, and it should fill us with a lot of hope going forward as well if we can make the right decisions with list management, because we clearly have talent on this list to work with, but right now we just don't have enough alongside that talent. But yeah, overall, just a really down day, and it's one of many down days. And the sad thing is, it's not even close to the worst performance I wouldn't even say it was bottom 5 worst performance of the year for the Bombers so far, but it is really starting to compound. Like, I highlighted the importance of these 5 games and the stretch that we're playing and why we need to be competitive in these games, but yet again, for the 5th time in 10 matches, we have been blown out of the water, and that is never excusable. Like, Richmond don't have a team right now. They've got injuries, more injuries than we had last year, and they're showing more fight than us at the moment with a fitter list. Like, if we lose next week against the Tigers, who barely have emergencies, that's almost it. Like, that is enough of the team in this direction under Scott, under these coaches. I look at what Carlton did moving Voss on. I just think that this season has been so much of seeing nothing. Like, yes, we're young, but that's not what's setting us back. It's not the young players. It's not Roby and Farrow costing us. Like, we're at least getting games into them, but they are often the ones showing the most in games. And of course, the narratives in this one, Pat Voss, a player we delisted, kicking 5 goals and taunting fans, a crowd of under 30,000. This game was not the worst of the year by any means. Many would say it's an expected result, but it doesn't make it any less hard. It's just another weekend of reviewing games that we lose at halftime. We're just such an easy team to play right now. All you need to do is show up for a half, pile 15 goals on us, and then relax for an hour and wind down. And that is kind of what it's been like watching Essendon this year for most of the season. So, really frustrating loss, really negative review, really negative vibe out of the club. I came into the game really positive, expecting more, and was let down, for the 5th, 6th, 7th time this year by a team that has just been so poor when we expected them to be showing a lot more than they are. So, yeah, let's get on to the votes. I'm going to give one vote to Andy McGrath. I actually thought he was pretty good. You know, most intercepts for the club, 22 disposals, and was really effective by foot as well. He was taking the game on and opening up the field out of the defensive half. Probably one of the only players to really do so. I'd still rather him in the midfield, you know, playing a role on Shea Bolton or something, but I thought he was a level above most of our team. 2 votes, Zach Merritt. I don't know why he started on the wing, but, you know, settled in better than most. 26 disposals, second most score involvements for the team, but 3 votes, Sullivan Roby. Like, 18 years old doing this was, I don't even think it's me, you know, praising him for being a young player. I genuinely thought he was our best player sometimes. And the way that he was being used in stoppages so often, like 22 touches, but how many possessions would he have grabbed which stopped Fremantle, you know, moving the footy forward? But, you know, 2 goals, 5 clearances, awesome performance. My role player, honestly, I struggled to find one, so I just gave it to Archer May, who I want to give some love, you know, fun player, young player, who's settling into that forward line. But yeah, tough week for votes. I don't know. Good luck finding them, guys. Leave your 3, 2, 1 in the comments below. Well, yeah, that's that, guys. A jolly review done and dusted. Next week, it is the battle for the wooden spoon. Battle for bottom. Essendon versus Richmond. Friday night footy. Bro, that is rough. Dream time at the G. Massive occasion. So get out to the game if you can. Like, even just taking away the 2 teams involved, the occasion and the spectacle is really just fantastic and amazing, and it's such a good showcase of the history of football and where it started and where it is now, and those involved as well. It's fantastic for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island players and just you know, people. So yeah, big game of football, but gee, one that if we don't win, I mean, yeah, it's hard to be positive right now about the Essendon Football Club. Of course, the young players are up and about, but yeah, things are not good. So I'll see you around. I've got player ratings out on, I guess, tomorrow for members and on Spotify. So stay tuned for that. No VFL recap this week because there was no VFL. On Wednesday, I'll have the Everything Essendon show. I'm sure that'll be jolly as well. And then we look forward to Essendon Richmond Dream Time at the G. A run of games that I really think the Bombers need to be getting wins from. I know that people want the draft picks this year, but I think morale and momentum is more important. I would rather that we beat the Tigers this week than... Actually, I don't know. You know, it's at that stage now where you're sat there thinking, you know, do you want to be winning these games and keeping the club in this limbo for longer? Or do you want to be, you know, hard decisions to be made? It's sad that we're even at that stage, but I know that plenty of you agree with me down in the comments. And if you don't, let me know. Let me know why. I think it's, yeah, we're at a stage now where Brad Scott is, you know, Michael Voss's job is gone. We've seen what's happened to Carlton since then and the win over the Bulldogs and what that has given the fan base and the rejuvenation there. But we're at the stage now where we're thinking, you know, does that need to be happening with Essendon soon? And that is not a good place to be. So thank you for watching, Bomber fans. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. And as always, go Bombers.